Are you a movie fanatic? If you are, you probably went to Rotten Tomatoes, IGN, or IMDB.com to see how high your favorite movie ranks. Have you ever wondered what the top 10 best movies in the world are? I did, and I went to IMDB.com and took their top 10 rated movies, watched them, and ranked them myself. Before we get started with this list, keep in mind this is my opinion. I would love to hear your guys' opinion in the comments. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Let's get on to the list. With a runtime of 2 hours and 22 minutes, The Shawshank Redemption comes in first with a score of 9.3 out of 10. After watching this movie, I absolutely agree with their ranking. This movie is wonderful. The story flowed well and was interesting, didn't have many, if any, dull parts. The way that Andy climbs up the rank in the prison to manipulate the warden and to escape and then expose the prison for its corruption is fantastic. But each character worked so well in their own way. This movie is a masterpiece. Definitely well worth the watch and well deserving of its ranking. With a runtime of 2 hours and 55 minutes, The Godfather comes in second place with a score of 9.2 stars out of 10. I've always grown up hearing that The Godfather is such a good movie, and after watching it for the first time, I would have to agree. I love how the story starts off with the older, more experienced Godfather Don Corleone and then shifts to a new Godfather with less experience, Michael Corleone, and how they do things differently. One thing I really like about this movie, it shows the reality of being a Godfather family. It's not always gunning people down and making insane deals and ordering murders, although this movie shows quite a bit of that. It also shows the more slower parts, such as deals going on with the other crime families. With this being a longer movie, there's going to be some slower parts, and that kind of cut my ranking down a little bit as I kind of found myself getting a little bit bored. But don't get me wrong, this is an excellent movie. I would give it an 8.7 out of 10. With a runtime of 2 hours and 32 minutes, The Dark Knight comes in third place with a score of 9.1 out of 10. One thing about me is I am a big nerd and I love myself a good superhero movie, and The Dark Knight delivers. The performances of the actors are extraordinary, especially the Joker. He does such a well job on delivering how much of a maniac and psychopath he truly is. One thing I love about this movie is all the sacrifices that have to be made, such as Harvey taking the blame of being Batman in order to protect Bruce Wayne's Batman, and the boat scene where the two boats have to blow each other up but then they refuse. This is one of the best superhero movies I believe out there, and I'm going to go ahead and agree with IMDb on this one. I'm going to give it a 9.1 out of 10. With a runtime of 3 hours and 22 minutes, The Godfather Part 2 comes in fourth place with a score of 9 out of 10. This movie had its ups and downs for me. I really enjoyed the beginning of how Don Vito's flashback showed him rising to become Godfather. And I liked the idea of Michael wanting to expand his business and how it's moved over to Nevada and he wanted to start with casinos in Florida and Cuba. However, that was pretty much it. With it being an almost 3.5 hour long movie, I had to take a break in order to finish the whole entire movie. I liked the action sequences with the gunning down and everything, but that's pretty much it. Micah being in Cuba and Florida just wasn't all that appealing to me, and it got kind of confusing with who was setting up Michael and everything. And with all those out of the way, I think I have to give this a score of a 6.7 out of 10. With a runtime of 1 hour and 36 minutes, 12 Angry Men comes in fifth place with a score of 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed this movie. It was short but simple with an amazing plot. The 12 men coming together to spark new ideas about how the boy allegedly killed his father, and their judgment of the boy not being guilty is wonderful. I would rate this an 8.1 out of 10. With the runtime of 3 hours and 15 minutes, Schindler's List comes in the sixth place with a score of 8.9 out of 10. I really like this movie. Schindler's attitude towards the Holocaust starts off by moving to Germany to get rich by hiring Jews to work for him for extremely cheap to provide Germany with munitions for World War II. By the end of the film, he is extremely concerned about all the Jews' safety and manages to save over 6,000 people. This is a little bit of a longer movie with a few slow parts, but I would give this 8.6 out of 10. With a runtime of 3 hours and 21 minutes, The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King comes in 7th place with a score of 8.9 out of 10. I haven't read any of the books, and this is the first movie out of the 3 I've seen, so I got pretty confused with the story, probably because I'm watching the 3rd movie first. Nonetheless, I still enjoyed the movie, and considering this movie was made in 2003, the CGI was pretty darn good for its time. If I were to rate this again, I'd probably rate it higher than I am right now, because I would have watched the 1st and 2nd movie before this one. But for this one, standalone, I think I'm going to have to give it a 7.1 out of 10. With the runtime of 2 hours and 34 minutes, Pulp Fiction comes in 8th place with a score of 8.9 out of 10. This movie is meant to be confusing, I feel like. With all the time cuts jumping back and forward in time and multiple stories being part of one big story, it's kind of difficult to understand the main point of the movie. However, it is pretty funny and entertaining, and with all that said, I would give it a solid 7 out of 10. With a runtime of 2 hours and 58 minutes, The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring comes in 9th place with a score of 8.8 out of 10. This is the first movie in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and after watching this one, I have learned a little bit more of the Lord of the Rings lore, and I feel like it's something that I could get into. I really enjoyed this movie, and I personally had no idea that the ring had such importance and such a huge backstory. And overall, I think I would give this movie a 7.9 out of 10. With a runtime of 2 hours and 58 minutes, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly comes in 10th place with a score of 8.8 out of 10. Now I've grown up hearing all sorts of good things about this movie, and now I know why. And I've never been the biggest fan of Westerns, although I wanted to be. I've got to admit, I fell asleep while I was watching this movie, and I had to restart watching it again. But after I got through it, it was pretty good, and I can see why people call it the best Western out there. It was kind of a longer movie, kind of boring at some parts for me, honestly, but with all that into consideration, I'd have to give it a 7 out of 10. Alright everybody, that is my list on how I ranked the top 10 highest rated IMDb films. This is all my opinion once again, and I would love to hear you guys' opinion in the comments below. Yeah, I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you later.